You have to understand that decision-making is emotional, and you have to get to that emotion because that will motivate people to buy. Hi, my name is Randy Stackaruk. I mentor startups. I got into this because I had a 35-year sales career where I actually carried a quota for all that duration and retired, but then I got bored. I can't sit still, and I thought, now what to do? And so I started volunteering with incubators and accelerators, and I've been doing this now about 4 or 5 years. And I find the number one problem startups have is go-to-market. Like, how do I sell stuff? I've been on committees and boards with very experienced executives, and 70% of the conversation is all about, how do I sell something? And that's the fundamental problem, and I get a huge sense of satisfaction out of doing this. So I have a small consultancy, and I work with startups and basically help them grow their business from basically zero to several $1 million. And it's a lot of fun and get a great sense of satisfaction. I enjoy working with startups because they're so creative, and the work you're doing here in Brampton is wonderful, where you're taking people with ideas who are trying to figure out, okay, how do we not only create a product, but how do we create a market? How do we go to market? How do we describe what we're doing? How do we find these people? It's a very creative endeavor. That's just the part of business that I love, and have been doing it for many, many years. So it's my part of giving back as, having done this for 35, 40 years. The number one thing for startups to have down is their value proposition and messaging. And there's a lot of noise on the internet about what that is, but the fundamental is, why does someone actually buy your product? Years ago, I was selling a piece of software, and I found out they weren't buying the technology. It was offered an insurance policy. And I realized I wasn't selling the technical features, I was selling assurance. So I had to change my messaging. So why is it that people would buy this? For example, I'm scheduled for a knee replacement. You could tell me about all the technical details about a knee replacement. I don't really care. But what I care about is, I want to go on long walks. I love riding my bike. And these are things I can't do. So that message is the core thing. What is motivating somebody to do something? So that's what most founders get wrong. They're into feature, function, benefit, and people don't care. You have to understand that decision-making is emotional, and you have to get to that emotion because that will motivate people to buy. The reality is, you have to look at what I call a day in the life of a person. What are they doing? Especially if you're selling a visionary product. There's another part to that sale. If I was to sell you a cell phone, the first thing you would do is you would contrast that with other cell phones out there. But if I'm selling you something that does not exist, you're going to look at it and say, great solution, what's the problem? So I have to understand what you do, what your day-to-day existence is, align with that, and talk as if I'm in your world, and then begin to paint a picture and give hope for a future existence. So it's basically current state, future state. So what does this future state look like, and what is the hope you're giving me? And when you identify that, which is not easy, by the way, it's a lot of work. When you identify that, that's what you're appealing to in your messaging. And most people don't get this right. But to get people to that future state and to get them focused on that, you've got to create hope. And in order to do that, you really have to understand their world. So the bottom line is, you have to do a tremendous amount of research. When you're looking at ideal customer profile, or ICP, a lot of times people launch into this. I reverse that. You want to start with your messaging, and then from that, who cares? That's how you identify your ideal customer profile. And then within that, who within your ideal customer profile would you have a conversation with? But each of those conversations have to change, because if I'm the president or the IT director or director of marketing, what I get measured on is very different. So you have to take your value proposition and then customize it to each one of those segments. And then it gets even more complicated, because depending on where I am in the sales cycle, I'm either worried about, what is this, or is this a good decision, i.e. risk? So it makes it very complicated, but when you get that down, you have very powerful messaging. So your messaging informs your ICP, which informs your persona. So too often it's fire, ready, aim, and I think we should prepare or aim, ready, fire. And I find that it's often done in the reverse order, and that's what creates so many of the difficulties with startups. So the most important thing is, Go out there and sell something. Fall on your face, have those conversations, and work through that process, because there's a lot to work through.